Homeschooling versus traditional public and private schooling. Section 1, Introduction. This paper examines the advantages and disadvantages of homeschooling versus traditional public and private schools. The modern homeschooling movement is a relatively new phenomenon, and although much has been written about its growing popularity, very little is really known about how well it works. Most of the literature relies on anecdotal evidence, and scholars freely acknowledge the lack of hard data on the subject. Most authors agree that there are both advantages and disadvantages to homeschooling, with most reporting that the benefits outweigh any potential drawbacks. However, most of the literature is a product of the homeschooling movement and may contain obvious biases. Without a systematic survey, a test scores, and sociological studies assessing the benefits of homeschooling is mostly guesswork from limited and selective data. The only consensus in the literature is that homeschooling is a small but rapidly growing phenomenon, which comprises mostly white, middle-income, two-parent households who hold devout religious beliefs. Legally, homeschooling advocacy groups and parents have systematically won legal challenges and have successfully limited regulations, mandatory testing, outside evaluation, and curriculum requirements across the country. Section 2. Contrasting academic performance. From a public policy perspective, the most pressing question is, are homeschool students meeting or exceeding the academic standards required by traditional schools? And how well do homeschool students perform on standardized tests versus traditionally educated students? Unfortunately, there exists little reliable data on this topic. Families who elect to homeschool their children are often reluctant to share personal information and are generally not required to do so, which makes it difficult to compare academic performance. One of the most publicized studies on the subject gave largely positive results, placing homeschool students in the top 75th percentile. This study was commissioned by Homeschool Legal Defense Association, a homeschool advocacy group through Bob Jones University, a private university founded to encourage conservative Christian values. Although the study is frequently cited to support the advantages of homeschooling, the study has been criticized by scholars on both sides for containing a number of methodological flaws. For example, the students in the sample were self-selected and volunteered to be included in the homeschooling study. For a sample to be representative, the selection must be random or sufficiently large to be characteristic of the whole. According to Paul Hill, at this point, there is no study on the experiences and outcomes for a truly representative sample of homeschool students. Michael Kogan, a researcher at the University of St. Paul, stresses that the absence of current research regarding homeschoolers' academic achievement in college. According to Kogan, little is known about homeschoolers once they enter the higher education arena. However, based on his analysis of one private university, Kogan concluded that homeschoolers score higher on ACT exams, maintain a slightly higher GPA, and have an equal fall-to-fall retention rate.
Section 3. School Standards. One of the disadvantages of homeschooling is the lack of outside oversight and regulation in many states. Due to strong political pressure by groups such as HSLDA, only 25 states require standardized testing and evaluation of homeschooled students. 10 states do not require parents to notify the state that they intend to homeschool their children. In the state of Alaska, homeschooled students are exempted from compulsory education laws and all subject matter requirements and testing. Some critics point out that homeschooling lacks the educational resources offered by public and private schools. Paul T. Hill, research professor at the University of Washington, Bothell, states that those resources can easily be found or outsourced. Hill also cited an example of a mother who majored in math, who would tutor other families' children in return for lessons in music or history. Homeschooling support groups and associations share information on educational materials, legal, pedagogical, and philosophical advice. Section 4. Safety and welfare of students. Homeschooling offers both advantages and disadvantages with regard to student safety. Parents who chose to homeschool report that their children's safety was a significant reason they chose to homeschool. Under direct supervision of the parent, they can shelter their children from bullying, school shootings, drugs, and gang violence. However, a number of children welfare organizations have expressed concerns that homeschooled children are at a higher risk for undetected abuse, as these children do not have the benefit from the oversight offered by school officials and educators. According to the data published by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, outside professionals report 56% of cases referred to CPS, with school personnel representing the largest segment of this group at 16%. Section 5. Socialization of homeschooling. Homeschool advocates maintain that home-based education encourages children to socially interact with adults, stimulate social skills, and promote leadership qualities. In the article Schooling Dangerously by Mary McConnell, McConnell asserts that homeschooled students are emotionally healthier and have a higher self-esteem and maintain a healthier self-concept. Critics claim the opposite is true, alleging that home-based education impedes social development, creating socially awkward children who are unprepared to engage their peers effectively in college and in the workforce. Evidence support that either hypothesis is largely anecdotal, but most commentators report that homeschooling children are, on average, sociable, happy, and well-adjusted. Of the few studies that have been published, most pull their data from a small non-representative and self-selected sample. This includes a study by Cynthia Dranowski and Isaiah Cohen, which stated that homeschoolers report having greater academic success in college and report having a more positive college experience.
In conclusion, my partner and I believe that homeschooling is a viable alternative for parents wishing to take more control over their children's education and moral environment. We also believe public and private schools provide parents with an adequate, if not equal, education.